Welcome back if you're coming from one of my previous videos on the Eureka tool. And if you haven't seen the previous construction one, you might want to take a look at that. On this one, we're going to deal with the mandrel and the indexing sleeve. And I did want to also say that this is just simply the way that I did it. There's a lot of different ways that you can build this. I'm just showing people how I did it. And all the drawings for this are available in Ivan Law's book, Gears and Gear Cutting, which is available, and it's in the last few pages of the book. And those exact same drawings are in a Model Engineer magazine, volume number 158, and you can get a good look at them there. But this is just simply the way I did it. It's not the right or wrong way to do it. It's just the way I did it. So let's go ahead and get started. Last video we started, we made the anchor plate, the ratchet plate, and the locator ring. So those are all done. Today we're going to work on the mandrel first. Okay, and it's going to be made in the four-jaw chuck. But before we get downstairs to the shop, let's go ahead over to AutoCAD and take a look at what we're up against here. Alright, the white lines represent a piece of 2-inch cold rolled steel, and the red in the center there, of course, is the mandrel that we're going to cut out of that 2-inch piece of cold rolled steel. So we'll go down in the cellar and get it all set up, and come on back up here and I'll show you the approach that I used to cut this piece. Now there's a piece of 2-inch cold rolled steel. Take a couple minutes here to get it through the bandsaw, but I'm working it through the bandsaw today. Alright, this ought to finish it. Alright, we're going to face both ends, and then I'll put a drill in each end, and we're going to hold it in the four-jaw chuck and use the tailstock with a live center, and get a nice surface on the outside on the OD here to use my dial indicator so that I can bring this into center. Alright, this will be the last time around. We're ready to get started now. Okay, right now we're you can see this is the center line here of the 2-inch piece of cold rolled steel, and what we're doing now is we're going to cut out the pieces that are concentric to that center line. So the first cut is this piece here that'll bring it back from here, and so let's go ahead and cut that up. Now this is the motor drive that I use to do all the cutting that I'm going to be doing on this mandrel. Also on the index sleeve, so I just wanted to show it to you. And this is the box that I control it from. And I built it on the end of my Atlas lathe, and you can see it's built in the Atlas lathe Z-axis drive video on my channel if you want to take a look at that. So now I'm hand holding the camera here, so I'm going to try to move forward without creating too much problem here for you. But there's our 2-inch piece of cold rolled steel, and as you can see, the motor drive is moving the carriage forward, and I'm making cuts on it. And what I wanted to show you was that there's that limit switch down there that just stops it at the end there. And I'll shift the position down there, and there you go. There's the limit switch. And you can see the video for that on the limit switch for the Z-axis motor drive, and that's on my channel as well, how I built that. But the carriage comes up, and you'll see it hit that limit switch, and then the lead screw will quit turning. And it creates a nice shoulder. It does a really good job of stopping on the exact same spot. So there we go. There, the lead screw stops. You undo the half nuts. Let me take my other hand here and undo the half nuts. And now I'm cranking it back. Okay, so re-engage the half nuts, and we go forward again. And that's pretty much how I did all the turning on this piece, just to make it easier for me. Alright, so this is our next cut here. And this will be our last cut that's concentric to the center line here. And what makes it interesting is this piece right here is actually the bearing surface for the index plate. So I'm going to cut this, and I'm doing it off camera because you've seen me cut the metal. I just use the motor drive to cut this piece out, and then we'll pick it up where I'm going to put a little bit of sandpaper on the final cut and clean this little area up right here and test the index plate on there to make sure it fits well on there before I continue on to the next step. Okay, it's a little 400 grit paper just to finish that surface off. When the whole piece is done, I'll burnish that part of it. But for right now, I'm just cleaning it up with a piece of 400 grit paper. Alright, let's get that index plate and see how it fits. Yeah, that's good enough. That'll be good. I finished making my shoulder. So now I've got the index plate in there, and I'm just scribing a line to make sure I know where my next cut's going to go. But before we go to the next cut, let's go back to AutoCAD for a minute, and I'll give you a rendition of what the next cut's going to look like. Okay, our next endeavor is going to be our new, this red line represents our new center line. This white line is the center line we're on now. So we're going to move it over 0.168. We'll use the dial indicators to do that in the 4-jaw chuck. And then once we've got it moved over, we'll double check everything. We'll double the number and make sure that we're all set up because this is really an important move. This is our first eccentric. And then we're going to cut away this part here. Okay, and so let's go ahead down into the shop and get started on that. Okay, I've got my dial indicator set up here, and what I'm doing is with the number 1 and number 3 jaws, I'm sliding over the blank until the indicator reads 0.168. Okay, and as I slide it over, then of course 3 and 4 have to be tightened up to keep it all nice and tight. And then I'm able to rotate it and then get the far reading, which would be 0.336. And I'm adjusting back and forth to make sure that my readings are coming out like that. I'm getting near the end here in this part. This is a voiceover because I was kind of busy when I was doing this, but it looks good to me now. And so there we go. We're set to go now. Now this is the beginning of our eccentric cut, and that 2-inch piece of my little lathe running around like that, it's having a good time. I'm sorry about it. It doesn't seem like I can keep this in focus too well with that cut the way it's going in my camera, so this is the best I can do. There you go. Let me move it. Yeah, move it to an overall. There's the overall. You can see the motor drive working. You can see the cut being made on the lathe there. And you get to the end, it stops. I come in, I release the half nuts, crank it back, crank it a little bit more, and give it a go. And just do that for a half hour. Alright, so now we're coming up on the final cut here. And this will be our first cut on that eccentric. And there we go. Okay, so we're ready now to cut on our new center line here, this red center line. And we'll cut away this part here first, and then this part here, and that'll leave us with our center part there. And as soon as we've got down there, I'll cut the threads in the end. And that'll finish this side of the mandrel. Okay, we're ready to put a little dicom on here to mark this up. Now here's our first cut on that eccentric part. So everything's calmed down pretty good now. We're right on that center. I'm sorry, but I can't seem to get this in focus, so I'll make this real short. Alright, here's our second cut. And I still can't seem to get this thing in focus for much. But you get the idea of what I'm doing here. Alright, so I'm just polishing it up a little bit here with some 320 paper. Before I flip it, let's go ahead and check this ratchet plate one more time. That's a good fit. Let's flip that over. You can see I've also flipped it over in AutoCAD. And this area right here, that's now being held in the 3-jaw chuck. And this white area here is an eccentric cut that I'll be making bigger, an interrupted cut based on that center line there. So let's go ahead down in the shop and get started on that. Alright, so we got it going here. We've got the motor drive running, so it'll be a little bit before this is going to get done. This is going to take a while. So I made this hand crank some time ago, and with small delicate threads like a TPI 40, I prefer to use a hand crank rather than power them through. So I'm going to hook this hand crank up, and I'll crank the 40 TPI with that hand crank. Alright, so slowly start my turn here, and let's get a look at what we got. Those are coming out just nice. Here's a closer up look, just for the heck of it. Alright, let me go ahead and check those out. A little out of focus here, but let's put some oil on that. Before you say anything, I know that boring bar looks bad, but I've been using that for years, and I've made many nuts with it, and it's as small as you see it is, but it cuts a good nut. So let me give you a little bit of a demonstration here. Once again, I'm hand cranking. Now it's in focus pretty good. You get a better look at it now. This looks pretty beat up, but that's a good threading thing. Let me give it another pass here, and then we'll take it over to the mill and finish it off. Alright, this will be the last pass. This will finish it up. There we go. Start the torch, and I'm going to case harden this nut. Lots of different ways to case harden. You can do it 2 or 3 times to get it harder and harder. All I want to do is protect the 8 sides of the nut, the 8 sides that we just made. So I bring it up to cherry, and that's cherry red compound there that we're going to dip it in here. And you totally cover it in the cherry red. Here we go. Alright. And I think I'll just leave it in there till the smoke dissipates. Now the second half of the process is you heat it up to cherry red again, and this time once you get it up to cherry red, you put it into the water and give it a good dunk, and then you're ready to test it with the fire. Alright, that's ready. And in the water it goes. It doesn't take long for it to cool out, and you take it right out again. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Let's get a file. Alright, the file is just dancing across it. It's hard enough. That'll protect those 8 sides that I want to protect. Alright, let's take this over the brass wheel. Alright, it's a fine brass wheel. And it just cleans it up really nice. Alright, all the video on the making of the mandrel are complete now. 2 things that I did not make it to the video, and the first is not really of any real consequence, but I cut that flat in there with an end mill, and that just allows the set screw here, so the set screw buggers up the flat and you can still get it on and off. The second one's a little bit more important, and I don't know why I didn't get it on, but on the end here you have an offset, and that center is offset 30 thou. And so when I finished cutting the back here, I put it back in the 4-jaw chuck, and I trued it up, found the position, and I offset it 30 thou, and that makes our second eccentric for this mandrel. And so anyway, that finishes that up. And the next thing we're going to do is we'll go off and we're going to do the indexing sleeve. The indexing sleeve fits on the mandrel like that. And I think I'm going to continue with the idea of showing you what I'm doing in AutoCAD and then doing it. We're back in AutoCAD, and this is once again a piece of 2-inch round cold rolled steel. The white represents the steel. The red part here is showing you the OD, or the outside diameter of our ratchet sleeve. The blue part here is the part that we're going to be boring out, and we'll do the boring exercises first. Our first boring exercise will be done right here, right through the center. I'll drill it, and then I'll ream it, and that'll be step 1. So let's go ahead down to the shop and get started. Alright, here's a piece of 2-inch cold rolled steel from the bandsaw. We'll face it off here and face off both ends and center drill them. Yeah, let's put a center drill on it here. And this will be the last drill bit. We'll be able to ream it from here. This hole's small enough, I've got a reamer for it, so we won't have to bore it. And there's the reamer. So let's go back upstairs to AutoCAD. Okay, we've bored out this center part here. And now our next move is to bore out this section right here. And then finally this section right here. Okay, let's bore out that reamed hole to that first step. Using a 1/4-inch high-speed steel boring bar that I made. I like the finish I get on them, so I use them a lot. Alright, the boring of that hole was out of focus. As you see, I'm just checking the bore here. I don't know what happened. It's still a little tight in there, so I'm going to make an adjustment. Let's go ahead and make an adjustment here. Okay, I put the mandrel back in again. I'm going to put our sleeve, the bore that we just put on it, and I just put some. I didn't need to put any transfer paste. I just used Dykem on there. I think I can figure out where the problem is, but I'm going to make the adjustment on the mandrel and not on the index sleeve. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I see it. It's pretty clear now. Yeah, right there. Okay, going to test with the mandrel here. Just one final test. We'll put the index plate on there. And there's our newly made sleeve. We'll put that on there, just make sure everything fits good, and that seems to be pretty good. Alright, so I'll mount the mandrel. We'll work on the OD now. And we're back in AutoCAD again, and our interior bore is all completed. So now we're going to remove this white cold rolled steel here. It'll be 3 different pass types. This first one here, this area here, is the bearing surface for the anchor plate and for the locator ring. So we'll do that first and then test those on, and then cut these next 2 and get ready to do the threads down here. So let's go ahead back down into the shop. Alright. Turning that first surface there. This is the surface that the anchor plate and the locator ring will go on. And still using motor drive. And this is our first cuts on the OD of the index sleeve. Okay, got a little dicom on there, so we'll put the anchor plate on there. Yeah, that fits good. Put the locator ring in there. And we'll just scribe a little line so we know where our next cut's going to be. Final few passes on this exterior ring here. Alright, so let's get a little start going here. I'm doing a voiceover here. There we go. I had it a little too deep. And you can't see it, but it's backing out the mandrel. I'm sorry, the index sleeve from the chuck. So now I'm getting a little bit of wobble. So I'm doing this with the hand crank. So I'm gonna, back it out of here. Yeah, I haven't caught on yet what the problem is. There we go. Now, nope, still haven't caught it yet. Now I see it. Put that sleeve back in position again. I was trying to take a little bit too much meat. Good thing it happened on the first pass. Now just backing it up a little bit, cleaning it up just a skosh. And we'll see if we can't clean that up. Just a light pass. Alright, I did get it correct, but I shut the camera off here to think about it for a minute. I got a little oil on there, and it's a 1/4 high-speed steel bit. Cut the internal threads for this nut. Still using the hand crank. Yeah, just a little bit too much meat. For whatever reason, I keep dialing in just a little bit too much. I managed to save those external threads, so I don't want to bugger up these internals. So I'll go ahead slow with that, and then we'll take it over to the mill. Alright, this will be the last pass on this nut. Okay, now we're just cutting the index slots in there so that the tool will cut 12 teeth. And I'm just using a dovetail cutter to do it. And this is the only part I use where I use my CNC equipment. I sold my manual rotary table, so this seemed like the best way to get it done. But there you go. Okay, I've taken you through all the parts that I made to make the Eureka tool, and I hope it showed you what you needed to know. I still have a few other parts that I've made here, and these are the ones that actually hook it up to the lathe itself. And I'll go ahead down to my lathe and I'll show you how these work. Every lathe is different, so actually hooking hooking it up to your Atlas is really depends on what you got here. But I have two, a live center and a dead center, and then I put a bar on my faceplate here, and there is a piece that goes on like this and tightens with a set screw. There we go. And so when you put it between centers, it's got a nice tight fit into the faceplate. Now the next thing we need to do is to stop this part of the moving, and this is the cutter that's going to do the cutting, and I just made a piece that goes over it like that, and it adheres down, and that just goes in there like this. Tighten it up, bring that up, and there we go. So now I've got my back gears engaged and we're ready to go. And there you go. I'll tell you, on the next one we'll set this up and I'll show you how to set your clicks up, and we'll finish up with the clicks so that you've got a nice feed on your index like that, and a little bit of the learning curve for cutting one of these is a little steep, but I'll go over that with show you how I figured it all out. So thanks once again. Thanks a lot for watching, and hope I'll see you next time.